Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on cracking the GMAT scoring algorithm. I'm Piyush and I'm going to be your host in this webinar today. So warm welcome to all of you based on wherever you are. And I would like to hear from you. Where are you from? So feel free to tell me about yourself. A quick short intro where you are from and maybe what is your current score in GMAT and what is the target score that you're looking for, what that you're aiming for rather. And feel free to tell me also what are the expectations from the webinar, any specific thing that you are looking at. Obviously, I'm going to cover a lot of things around how to crack the GMAT scoring algorithm and get a 700 plus with a lot of case studies. So this is going to be a very different webinar. You're not going to get a one-way communication or just some random things, some random strategies. You'll actually see a lot of case studies being taken up, a lot of real data being used to come up with certain really great insights which would help you understand the algorithm better. But it would be great to hear from you. I don't see anyone saying anything as of now. I want it to be interactive as possible. So please feel free to let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear, and also a little bit about yourself. Great. I just started sharing my screen. So Pranit says 750. I guess Pranit, you mean to say that you are looking at a 750 kind of a score. That's good to hear. Okay. I see 20 plus people are there live. And please don't be shy. Please feel free to tell me what are the scores that you are at, what is the kind of score that you're looking at, any specific advice that you're looking at. Feel free to add those, talk about those points in this initial introduction. Okay, Ria also says I'm looking at 750 plus. Okay. Devojit is looking at 720 to 730. Okay, good. Happy to hear from you. Julia says 700 plus is what will do the job for me. Ria says I haven't started yet, but I'm looking at 750 plus. Good place. So again, you actually learn a lot, Ria, about the GMAT test itself today, which will actually make it very easy for you to learn about, let's say, how to get started with the prep as well. In fact, that's going to help you significantly. In fact, let me quickly give you guys a quick link. I conducted a webinar which was around how to start your GMAT prep as well last week. So in case you guys have not gone through it, you can actually check that out. I'm going to just share the link for the webinar in case anyone is interested to actually start their prep and understanding how to start the prep. So you can actually go through this link. I've just pasted it in the chat. It's on the same YouTube channel, so you can use this at any point of time. Great. So Yash also is looking at 720. Mox is scoring a 450. Okay. Long way to go, but you can go get through to it for sure. So again, a lot of you are raising that 720 is what I'm looking at. That's great to hear, guys. So let's get started with the webinar then. So a little about me. I'm Piyush. I'm going to be a main host. I am a strategy expert at GMAT Wiz, and I have scored a 740 on GMAT and a 99.9 percentile on CAT. As an individual, I love analyzing data. I'm in this industry for more than about 9 years now. I've helped thousands of students. I've looked at least 2000 plus ESRs in my entire career. So I've looked at so many data points that I can actually, I feel that I'm one of the best in the industry when it comes to understanding of how the ESR and the algorithm really works. Again, I don't want to praise myself, but I have a knack to understand the algorithm really well. And this webinar, I'm going to talk about those aspects. So a few things that we are going to talk about, and these are a few common concerns that I hear from students. And I'm going to address these concerns for you in this webinar. So that will help you get a pretty good idea. One thing which I hear from a lot of people, and please feel free to say a yay or nay to this in case you guys have faced this concerns yourself when you actually take the GMAT or prepare for the GMAT. One common concern that I feel is that I always feel time crunch towards the end of the test. When I'm reaching towards the end of the test, I'm not very comfortable with the timing. I don't know how to pace myself. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss what should be your pacing strategy. How should you start? What should you do in each quarter? Many people say that you should pace yourself linearly. Again, that's not the most optimal way of going through the algorithm, or maximizing your score from the algorithm. So we are going to talk about how to pace yourself in this webinar today. We're going to talk about that in depth overall. Okay, so that is something which I'm going to cover. The second thing which I'm going to cover also is that I don't understand how the algorithm works. Again, a lot of people know this, some people may not know this, but GMAT algorithm is different. It's an adaptive algorithm. The kind of questions you get is dependent on how you're performing. Okay, and I'm happy to see that I'm able to come and connect to some of the questions that you had, Ahmed, Sigmund, and Ria, Rashmi Rekha also have faced this issue. So we are going to get answers to these questions. We are also going to talk about what happens if you score poorly and you're not able to do the last few questions. So many people think that they're scoring poorly just because they're not able to complete the test. So that is something which I'm going to talk about today. Divakar, again, Divakar is asking, can you also talk about how to start the prep, best resources? So Divakar, you can use this webinar link. I actually conducted one webinar last weekend on the same topic. Today also, I'm going to talk a little about the preparation part. Again, those are not going to be a step-by-step guide or how to start. It is more about the good things that you need to keep in mind in order to tackle the algorithm. But the more important discussion is going to be around the algorithm, understanding how it works. So you can use this, and that will help you understand about the entire check out this recording to understand how the entire study sequence should work. But my focus today is going to be on the algorithm. So I'm also going to help you understand if you're scoring poorly on the GMAT, and you're thinking that it's just because of the last few questions, then you are thinking wrong. So I'll talk about that. I'll also talk about how should you improve the average time spent per question. Okay. And Sarthak, what a 750 score takes, definitely we're going to talk about how can you get to a 750 score. What does it mean in terms of the algorithm, how you need to get the questions right, which questions you need to get right. All of that discussion will happen today. One more discussion we'll talk about, and this is very important. Any of you who are retakers or any of you who have been preparing for some time will understand the importance of this part. How many of you are retakers? Let me ask you, how many of you have taken the GMAT earlier? Let's see some responses from you. How many of you have taken the GMAT earlier? Just say a yes, I have taken the GMAT in the comments. I'll get to know that. And if you are a retaker, you would have understood the kind of anxiety you get on the test day and the kind of silly mistakes you make under pressure. So basically, this is something which we are definitely going to talk about. So Rashmi, we will definitely talk about improving the pace. As I said, I'm going to tell you how to improve the average time per question. Okay, so we will definitely talk about that. But practicing alone is not going to help you in doing that. But we'll talk about that overall. So quickly, before we get into all of this, a quick short intro about us and what is that we do at GMAT Wiz, and then we will move over to the main part. So at GMAT Wiz is world's only truly personalized learning course. So imagine a course which kind of personalizes learning based on your strengths and weaknesses instead of just giving you the same question, the same content which is served to everyone. So we don't believe in one size fits all. We believe in personalization to the maximum level. And that's what we do at GMAT Wiz. So if you take up GMAT Wiz learning platform, where we provide a self-paced learning course, classroom course, and even private tutoring, in all those cases, you'll have a personalized study plan, which is created for you every single week by AI. You will also have access to real-time improvement modules. So you will not get a course which is same for every student. Depending on how you're performing in real time, the course is going to adapt. The content is going to adapt. You will have different videos, different questions, different quizzes based on your strengths and weaknesses. And you will also get access to dedicated mentors. If you take the combined package from our side, which is the Quant Plus Bubble package, you can connect with a mentor every 15 days for a short call to actually understand whether you're headed in the right direction or not. So we have the right mix of mentorship with AI and giving you a platform which helps you learn in the best possible way. So quick overview about GMAT Wiz. That's one of the biggest reasons we are GMAT Plus, one of the most effective course when it comes to average score improvement. Today we stand at a very, very high average score improvement compared to any other player in the industry, if you check out. And we are also actually starting a new batch, a classroom batch this weekend. In fact, this week we can say, where we are going to take up 25 live sessions over 12 weeks, which will cover every aspect of GMAT Quant and Verbal. So if you're looking at getting a 700 plus score before round one, this is ideal for you because this will give you access to not just 25 live classes, 100 plus hours of video lessons, also 4,000 plus questions, along with 10 mock tests. So it's one of the best options for studies which is out there. So anyone who was asking for this, you can look at it if you want to. Okay, so this is the link. I'm just quickly sharing this for anyone. We have a limit of 20 students in this batch only. So there are some seats available. You can check this out if you want to. So that was a quick overview about GMAT Wiz. Let's get to the main part of the webinar now. So how have I structured this webinar? So the structure of this webinar is going to be very simple. I'm first going to start with some case studies on test strategies. Again, I don't want to bore you with a lot of strategies right away that, okay, this is how it works. This is how it works. The way we are going to go through this is that I'm going to give you some case studies. I'm going to show you some use cases. And from those use cases, we will derive insights. So rather than just plainly talking about the insights directly, we'll understand how those things work. So that's how we will start this. Then we will move to the timing strategy for verbal. So from there, we will actually build up understanding that how should you time yourself for verbal? How should you pace yourself for verbal? And then we will also talk about the timing strategy for quant. So we will move to that, like how should you pace yourself in quant? And then we will also talk about deciding the right section orders. Now that the GMAT online is also conducted in the same fashion as the offline GMAT, deciding the right section order becomes very, very critical. So I'm going to talk about that as well. And in the end, I'll open it up for any additional questions that you might have. And I'll also share some tips for you. Okay. So, Sheshadri, how to crack the right last RC that comes in? Probably that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna talk about today. Okay, so we will definitely talk about those things. And I see a lot of you are retakers, but don't worry, I'll be talking about the anxiety part as well. So let's see a case study, how the algorithm works, a very simple case study. And this is a case study which is very close to me because this was the exact same thing which happened with me. Again, before coming to that, a quick question to you guys. Okay, let's see how do you understand, what is your understanding of the algorithm. So let's say these are two options in front of you. How do you think smart students take the test? Again, leave aside those people who are already at a 770 or 760 or more. Okay, let's leave aside those people. They're like extremely smart. Okay, how do smart people take the test? Like those who are scoring in the range of 700 to 750. What is your thought process around it? Do they pace themselves in a way that they have enough time for all questions, or they pace themselves in a way that they fall short of time in the last 4 to 5 questions? What is your take on it? Let me hear from you guys. What is your take on it, guys? How do you think smart students take the test? I would like to hear from you first. So you can mention option 1 or option 2 based on whichever option you think smart students will take up. Okay, Rashmi Rekha says 2. Do the questions skips the ones, or if it takes more than a minute. Okay, Ayush says 2, Anjana says 2, Nishant also says 2. Great. Arpan says 1. Okay, so I have one taker for 1. Divakar somewhere between 1 and 2. Okay, Julius says 1, Nitya says 1. Okay, I am getting a lot of ones now, like a lot of people are going for 1. None of them is what Pujita says. Okay, good. Divakar says I'm looking at 2. Okay, option 2 is what Pranav says. So it seems like most of you are saying 2 is the right way to go ahead. Then we are going to have a very interesting discussion, because see, I generally, when I take this webinar a lot of people say 1 makes sense. 1 actually makes a lot of sense. However, let me tell you, my viewpoint is, if you are in the score range of 700 to 750, like looking at that, again, obviously, if you're at a capability of 760 or more, 1 might also make sense for you. But if you are a smart student, not an extremely smart student or extremely intelligent guy, then the option 2 is the thing, obviously. And option 2 is the most logical one. And let's understand why am I saying so. So let's take a case in point. As I said, this is my particular case story. This happened with me. When I was in the test center, I was towards the end of verbal section. I checked the time available with me. I checked the number of questions I had left with me. The number of questions were 14 and the time remaining was 19 minutes. So I had less than 1.5 minutes per question. So I was obviously running way behind the required timing. Okay, I was way behind the time. And the worst part is I actually ended up getting a RC passage at that point of time. And the passage was long, super weird, super convoluted. Obviously, I felt that rush because I had 19 minutes and 14 questions to attempt. I kind of gave 20 seconds to reading that passage. I read about 2-3 lines. Nothing went into my brain. It was super weird, super convoluted. At that point of time, I had a decision to make. What do I do? And I want you guys to place yourself in my place for a moment. Try to imagine that if you were where I was, what would you have done? And the possible choices in front of me were these three. The first choice I had was, okay, I skip some of the questions, as in I don't skip the RC completely. I am already running short of time. This is the RC passage. I skip some of the questions or do them half-heartedly instead of doing it completely. Just do some of the questions or just some, as in skim through the passage maybe. Or second option was I do this RC really well, okay, and I focus on selectively attempting the last 10 questions. That was the second option that I had. And the third option was skip that RC. When I skip that RC, obviously Sheshadri is right. What I mean by that is guess that RC. Basically, mark something randomly with that RC and focus on getting the last 10 questions correct. What would you guys do if you were at a place as I was? So Pujita has already given her verdict. She says I will go for B, which is I'll do the Parsi well. Jarnu, Rashmi Rekha, Hemant, all of they are saying C, so they are in the favor of skipping the passage. Okay, Anjana says A, I would do some questions, and that's understandable. I was also thinking about that in that moment, to be very honest, of doing that. Okay, Shashadri says I'll put option C to everything. I'll get something right. Okay, Arpan Nishant say they go for B. Divakar and Chirag are going for A. So I'm seeing a good split over here. A lot of you are going for C, which seems to be the most popular choice, and followed by A. And a decent number of you are saying B also makes sense. But again, I'm here to give you a proper understanding that why I picked an option out of this. And guys, this is one more important lesson. Irrespective of what I picked, you guys need to understand and take one more important lesson of strategic timeout. Okay, this is a concept which is there in IPL. Those of you who are cricket fans from India would know about this, but those of you are not, again, in NBL, any cricket that and any sports that you watch, there's a concept of timeouts, taking out time to strategize yourself, rethink about what you are doing. Because when you are in the heat of the moment, you many a times take wrong decisions. And if it's a crucial day, you cannot afford those wrong decisions. So it's better to take some time out. What I did was, at that moment when I spent 20 seconds on reading the passage, it was convoluted. I did not continue reading it. Most people make this mistake. They will rather just give into the pressure. They will not do any analysis. They will give into the pressure. They will either go for option A, like skim the passage, do some questions quickly so that they can focus on the next questions. But very few people stop. I actually put my pen down. I said, okay, I'm not going to do this. I relaxed. I said, okay, I'm going to think this through first, how I'm going to go forward, and then I'm going to decide what is to be done. And let me tell you how I rationalized with myself at that moment. I spent about 20-30 seconds doing that. So this is how I thought. Okay, if I go for option A, which is skipping some of the questions or doing them half-heartedly, what is the outcome that I'm getting? So one thing which was very important for me to understand was this was a weird passage. This was a convoluted passage. Another important point, a convoluted passage. And again, I was doing well in my prep. I was pretty confident of my skills. I was not someone who was underprepared by any means. I scored a 760 on the mock before it, and I've been scoring well on the other mocks as well. So I knew I was prepared. So if I get a passage which I feel is convoluted, what is the inference that you guys can draw from it? Let's hear from you. What is the inference that you guys can draw from it? Again, I can actually tell you the inference right away, but I want you guys to think and tell me what is the inference that could be drawn from it. So Chirag, this session is going to be recorded and made live after the session is over. So what is the inference that you guys can draw from it? Vishesh says I can draw the inference that it's an experimental question. I'm not sure how you draw that inference. Hemant says it's a 800 level passage. Okay, fair point, Hemant. What about others? It will be time taking to read and understand and get the questions answers right. Fair point, Shashadri, definitely. So what you're saying is it's a hard question. Okay. Karan says I'm enjoying the session. Happy to hear that, Karan. Okay. I hope you get a lot of lessons, and I've tried to bring in as many important points as I could in this webinar. Do not give too much time for that passage. Okay, that's what Anjana is saying. Again, that's you're jumping to the judgment, but I'm saying, what do I understand about that question? What do I infer from that question? Okay, one thing which I can infer, some of you are right in saying that, Nishant is saying that, and Hemant also said that this question is hard. That is for sure. Because as I said, I am a prepared student. I was getting a 760 in the mock. If it was convoluted to me, it basically means the question should have been a hard question. Okay. So Divakar says, I think I would waste a lot of energy doing it. Good point, Divakar, but I wouldn't jump to that conclusion right away. Wait to hear exactly what I have to present. Understand it this way, guys. Definitely, if I know that this question is hard question, this is a hard passage, what is the next inference that you guys can draw from it? What is the next inference that I can draw from it? The next inference that you can draw from it is that till now, the 22 questions that you have solved, you have done well on those questions. Okay. And guys, a lot of you are saying, if I'll guess a few questions, the question will kill a lot of time. Trust me, guys, if you are thinking in that direction, you do not understand how the algorithm works, or you do not have a clear understanding. And this session is going to change and rock your thought process about it. Okay. Understand it this way. If I get a hard passage, I for sure know that I have done till now very well. I've done very well till now in the test. And trust, like, understand this, guys. In an adaptive test, you actually do well to get the hard questions. You put a lot of effort and hard work to get hard questions, because hard questions are measured more heavily. They are given more weightage. So you work hard to get the hard questions. Now imagine how foolish of it would be of me to work so hard for the first 22 questions, tell the algorithm that I have the capability of getting hard questions, and when the algorithm gives me hard questions, I'm skipping them. How foolish of me. Like, I'm putting in all the effort, all the hard work to get that hard question, and now I will skip that passage, or I'll do some questions half-heartedly, and I'm getting the high value questions wrong. So I'm putting all this effort which I put in to waste. All this is gonna go to waste because I'm not gonna score on these hard questions, right? And the worst part, the story does not end here. Understand it, guys. This is an adaptive test. You cannot choose and pick the questions that you have to do. You have to do every single question to move to the next question. So if you do poorly on the high value questions, what will happen next? The algorithm will think you don't have the capability of getting the hard questions right. So what it will do is it will give you questions which are of lower value. It will give you questions which are of lower value. So you're saving time by getting the hard questions wrong for getting the low value questions right. So it's not just one mistake that I'm making another mistake over there. And trust me, guys, I've looked at 2000 plus ESRs, as I said. And from my experience, I can tell you, if I would have gone ahead with this strategy, my verbal score would have been in the range of 36 to 39. That's the max that I could have achieved. 39 is the max that I could have achieved, anywhere between this, depending on how many questions I get right. Okay. This is what I could have achieved. Again, I have a lot of questions, a lot of buts which are there. I'm going to answer all the buts. Don't worry. I'm there to answer all of it. Okay. I'll tell you why this makes sense. And I also tell you in which case it won't make sense also. There are some cases in which it won't make sense. For example, if you're not good at RC, this will not make sense. But if you're not good at RC, you should become good at RC, because otherwise it's very difficult for you to score a 700 plus. Okay. But anyway, let's not jump to the buts. I'll talk about them, but let's understand what I actually did. I told myself I'm going to do this RC really well. And trust me, guys, what I did there at that point of time was I spent about 4.5 minutes in just reading the passage. Imagine this, guys. Reading the passage, I spent 4.5 minutes in doing that. And if you remember the equation, I was at 14 questions, 19 minutes. And as I said, I spent about 20 seconds on the first read. I did not understand anything. I spent about 20-30 seconds of strategic timeout. Then I'm spending 4.5 minutes on this. So I've spent actually 5+ minutes and I've still not solved any question. So there was a point where I could get to this 14 questions, 14 minutes. That was the equation that it boiled down to. But the thing is, I was used to reading the passages in that fashion. That's how I used to solve questions. I knew that if I read things carefully, if I understand things carefully, I get those questions correct. And the best part is I could solve the next set of 4 questions in 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, because I had a very, very solid understanding of what was written. In most cases, that doesn't happen. People take 5 to 6 minutes to solve 4 questions because they have to reread the passage. But I read the passage well, and in the end, the situation boiled down to this: 10 question, 10 minutes. And what I did was I simply solved 6 of them. I just focused on 6 questions in those 10 minutes, did them well. 4 questions I just randomly marked. I did not care about them. That was the strategy that I took. Okay. And let me tell you the result of this. Understand this, guys. So I have done well till the first 22 questions. That is for sure. I got a hard passage. Now, when I get this hard passage right, and in fact, I have my ESR. I'm going to show that to you as well. I got everything correct in the third quarter, which was when the passage was served to me. I got every single question correct over there. So what I did was I told the algorithm that I have the capability of getting the hard questions right. So I'm not just scoring on those high value questions. I'm actually making the algorithm serve me even more valued questions later on. So even if I'm doing just 6 of them, that's valued. The value that I get out of them is much more than actually focusing my attention on 10 low value questions. Understand that difference, guys. And my end score was verbal 41. That is the kind of difference that it brought. Okay. And most people don't understand it. I come across a lot of people who compromise the time spent on the second and the third quarter to save time for the fourth quarter, and they end up not doing well on the second and third one, end up doing well on the fourth one, but by the time they have lost the battle. I'll show you ESRs, I'll show you exact score reports, which will tell you how wrong that strategy is. Okay. So let me quickly see some questions. Some buts were there. As I said, I answered those buts. But in the meantime, are you guys clear with this strategy? Is this case study clear to all of you? I just want to make sure the point is well driven across. It's getting across to all of you. If any questions are there, feel free to post in the comments. I'll be happy to take that up. So Divakar says, but sometimes when your brain is tired, you're under pressure, even a medium level question seems hard. Yes, Divakar, definitely true. But as I said, I was a seasoned, I was a pro at it. I was scoring a 760 before it. So I could know that, like I could trust my instincts on it. Okay, I was not in panic. Like that's one thing you understand. If I actually started solving the question right away, if I actually spent more than 20 seconds on reading the passage and I continued reading in that fashion, I would have definitely panicked. I would have gotten not just that question wrong, I would have panicked in the next ones also. Okay, so Sheshadri said, but getting hard questions wrong will not impact the score as much as getting the easy ones wrong. Sheshadri, you are right if that happens at the beginning of the quarter, because in the beginning you get the easy ones. Towards the end, that's not what it means. Like it's like there is a very little upside which is there towards the end. You have to understand hard questions are the most valued questions. I'm already getting them. Okay, I'm already getting them. How much sense does it make if I get a question which is of 5 marks wrong to save time for questions which are of 2 marks right? Doesn't make sense at all. Okay. Does this apply for verbal section or also for quant? Julius, yes, it applies for quant. This is about the algorithm. I'm going to talk about the testing strategy for verbal and quant separately. Don't worry about that. This is just a case study to get you guys started. This is just a workout that we are doing. I'm going to tell you exactly how you should pace yourself, how much time you should give to first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and everything. Okay. So Tanya says, so that means 6 out of 10 RC we should spend time to get right. What about the other sections? Again, I'm going to talk about the other sections as well. I'm going to tell you also how much time you should spend on RC and everything. What if you get 2 out of 4 questions wrong despite spending 5 minutes reading the passage? Very valid point, Vaibhav. See, the whole point is, as I said, I was used to doing it in that particular fashion. If I understand things right, I'm able to get the questions right. And if I don't trust my instincts, trust me, I'm not prepared for the test. Then I should not even write the test, to be very honest. Okay, understand it that way. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to focus on actually doing things the same way you do. I see people using a different strategy in the practice and a different strategy on the mocks, and they get devastated when they see a poor score. See, if you should not do something which you're not prepared for. Okay. And Srinidhi is saying, won't unanswered questions bring down the score? Yes, Srinidhi, that happens. I never said I skipped any question. I missed any question. I just think mark things 4 questions randomly. Never unanswered, like never leave any question unanswered. Okay. Yes, Shadri, the difficulty level will keep going up if you do the things right. Yeah. Divakar, yes, it's okay. Like if you're new to GMAT, algorithm is a different ball game altogether. Sometimes it's tough to understand, but yeah, hard questions carry more marks. They don't tell you how much more, but they carry more marks. Okay. So Sahil, again, understand it this way that the final score is not, I'm not sure whether they compute it on the final question. That is something which I'm not sure of, to be very honest. But even if they do, it actually matters the same way. See, if you end up getting the hard questions right, you get the trajectory going up. If you get the hard questions wrong, the trajectory goes down. Okay. If you are going up, it's a good ending point. If you're going down, it's a bad ending point. Understand it like that. They are not just looking at the last one question. Okay, you have done everything right before it. Last question you're getting wrong doesn't mean that it will drop like this. Never happens like that. They take into account all the other questions that you have done before it. So focus on that as well. Okay, I hope that answers the question. So guys, this is a very important lesson, guys. I want you to make a note of this if you want to. Very critical question, very critical suggestion from my side. If you feel anxious during the test, this happens with a lot of my students, a lot of other people I know. Never, ever, ever give in to that pressure. If you're feeling anxious, put your pen down, lean back, relax, take that strategic pause, think about what you are doing. Many people in the time pressure are just doing what just doing what comes to their mind. And sometimes if wrong things come to your mind, you end up getting the wrong outcome. Think about it. See, I could have also thought that that 20-second pause that I took is does that make sense? I'm already running short on time. But what you need to understand is those 20 seconds might cost me one, not even one question, but maximum one question, right? But if I don't take that break, in that anxiety, in that pressure, I'm going to actually work very poorly for all the questions. I'm going to mess up everything. Okay. So Mudit, I have that question answered in the test, in the strategy part. So let's not jump forward on this. I'll definitely answer that for you. So with this case study clear, I guess you guys have a pretty good idea about what is going to come next. So let's talk about a simplistic case. Again, to those of you who are starting the GMAT prep now, for example, Divakar or other people, this will actually help you understand the algorithm in a very simplified fashion. Okay. So what happens is, let's say you start the test. In most cases, the first question that you get on the GMAT is of a medium difficulty. In fact, this is something which I've seen from enhanced score reports of GMAT, understood from that, from thousands of reports that I've looked at. You start with a medium difficulty question. You get the question right. Okay. If you get the question right, you will get a question of higher difficulty level. So the next question you get is a medium hard question, let's say. Okay. Then if you get this question right, the next question that you get is of hard difficulty. Let's say you get that right as well. So the next question that you get is generally of a similar difficulty, assuming that hard is the most difficult question level which is there. And let's assume that you get the next question wrong. Fourth question you get wrong. So obviously the difficulty level will dip. Okay. And then the last question that you get is a medium hard question, and you also get this question wrong. Now tell me, take a minute if you want to, tell me, calculate and tell me what is the score the student has got. You can look at the scores assigned to the easy, medium, hard questions overall. Tell me the score of the student and the accuracy of the student as well. Tell me these two things. Just compute it and tell me. I would like to see from you guys. What is the score and the accuracy of this student on this 5 questions. Abhiyan says the score. What about accuracy? Rahul says 12 as well. What about others? What is the score and accuracy? Okay, 12 points is what Sigmund said, 60% accuracy. Great. Kartikeya also says the same. Okay, score 35. Shashadri says me actually help you understand this. Again, if you see one medium question, one medium hard, and one hard question correct, 5 plus 4 plus 3, a total of 12 points, and 3 out of 5 questions, so accuracy of 60%. So it's very simple math which is there. Okay, so this is how you understand the score of this guy. Now let's take another student. Okay, and obviously this student also started with a medium difficulty question. Let's assume that. Okay, obviously that's how the GMAT works. So that student also starts with a medium difficulty question, and instead of getting the first question right, this student gets the first question wrong. So what will happen next? What will happen next is you will get a question which is of easy medium difficulty, right? You get an easy medium question. Now let's say you get this question wrong as well. The next question that you get is going to be an easy question. And let's assume that student gets this question right. The algorithm thinks that he can get the easy question right. Algorithm serves him a easy medium question, and then he gets it right. He gets another question which is of a medium difficulty. So overall, now tell me, look at the score of this guy. And again, I can ask you, but again, I don't want to delay the discussion any further. So the number of points scored by this student is 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is 6, and the accuracy is 60%. And what I want you guys to focus on is that the accuracy of both these students are same. Both of them have a 60% accuracy. Okay, and the score is 12 points versus 6 points. This is the difference in score. Such a huge difference in score, even with the same level of accuracy. Okay, Shashadri, I'll take up your question. Don't worry about this. Are you able to understand the difference which I'm talking about over here? 12 points versus 6 points overall in the overall score, just because even with the same accuracy, just because of the difference in the pattern that they get the questions wrong. And guys, let me make this clear to you. GMAT never reveals how much score they assign to individual difficulty levels. So these numbers are assumed numbers just to make it easy for you to understand. Point number 1. Okay, so don't assume these are the points which are assigned, but obviously we know that the difficulty level, higher difficulty, are more valued than lower difficulties. Second thing, GMAT does not adapt after every question. Most likely they adapt after a set of 3 or 4 questions, and the adaptiveness is much more towards the beginning. The test is much more adaptive towards the beginning. It is a lot less adaptive towards the end. That's my understanding. GMAT does not reveal this data, but as I said, I have looked at 2000 plus ESRs. So from all that, this is the understanding that I have generated. Won't Shashadri's question, taking that up now. Won't the algorithm recognize anomalies, as in a strong student can miss easy ones? Yeah, so it can happen other ways as well. The algorithm does not have any way to understand the anomalies. It is only focusing on your trends. Okay, so that's why I said they do not calibrate after every question. They calibrate the difficulty level after a set of 3 or 4 questions. So that's the mechanism, Shashadri, which is there to take care of a few silly mistakes, let me put it that way. But yeah, from the coming ESRs that you're going to see, you will understand how much those silly mistakes can cost you. So yes, getting the starting questions right may be important. We'll talk about that. So as I said this, right now, I took a very simplified example for you to understand in a very simple fashion how the algorithm could work. This is the easiest way to understand it. But as I said, the question level adaptiveness is not there on GMAT. It's generally a block level adaptiveness which is there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a real ESR. So this is just a representation that I showed you. But now I'm going to show you a real ESR showing the real attempt of a student. And I'm going to give you like a simple case over here where you can see the exact score, and we can come up with certain inferences from that. Okay, so this will be our second case study. So this is the enhanced score report of Minds. Okay, this is from my personal GMAT attempt. This is exactly what I got. So this is the score that I received in verbal section. As you can see, I scored a verbal 41. And what this tells me, and this is the report which is given by the GMAT after you complete a test. You can actually get this report if you want by paying a certain amount. But this tells us that we have the accuracies across different quarters. So how I performed in the first quarter, how I performed in the second, and so on. So if you look at this chart, you can understand that I made a couple of mistakes in the first and second quarter, no mistake in the third quarter, and 3 mistakes in the last quarter. So the total number of mistakes that I made was 7. That was the total number of mistakes that I made. Okay? So it is very important to for you to understand this. Now, let's now bring up another ESR. So this is one ESR which you can see. 41 in verbal is the score that I got. 7 mistakes is what I made. Okay, let's look at one more ESR. So this is another ESR in front of you. This student made 8 mistakes. On the right side, you have another ESR. This student made 8 mistakes, and let me maximize the screen so that you can just look at the ESR. Out of these 8 mistakes, the trend was like this: 4 mistakes in the first quarter, 1 mistake in the second quarter, and 3 mistakes in the last quarter. So very similar trend as I had. Okay, and I want you guys to predict the verbal score of this student. What do you think was the verbal score of this student? I had a 41 in verbal. What do you think is the verbal score of this guy? Let's see some responses. If you want to take a minute, think about it and let me know. Ish says it should be for 32 to 36. Okay, Ish, that's good. Shubham says 39. Rahul says 39. Shashadi says 36. Okay. What about others? Okay. Arpit says 35. Prasanna says 32. 32 is what Anjana also believes. Okay. Arta says 42 to 43. So Arta says the student would have scored better. Okay. Abhiyan says 36 to 38. So a good number of you are saying it should be in the mid 30s, close to mid 30s. Some of you are saying high 30s. Some of you are saying low 30s, but most of you are agreeing with mid to high 30s, right? Let me reveal the score of the student. Okay, let me reveal the score of the student. The score of the student was just verbal 30. Just a 30 in verbal. Okay. How many of you are thinking that GMAT is being harsh over here? Like a 41 in verbal versus a 30 in verbal, even though the number of mistakes is just one less mistake, and you are getting a 30 in verbal. If you're thinking it's harsh, you're not able to believe this. This is a real ESR. And then trust me, guys, I'm going to show you something even more scarier than this. Okay, and that will actually help you understand how the algorithm works. Let's understand and let's bring a little more perspective into this. Okay, 7-8 mistakes we talked about. I have one more ESR which I did not show you. One student also made 9 mistakes, and let me show you the percentile scores. Again, this is the guy verbal 41. This is the guy who had a verbal 30. Now, this 11 points might look like just 11 points to you, but look at the difference in the percentile. There's a huge difference. It can be a difference up. It can lead to about 60 to 70 points on a bad day. This is the huge difference which I'm talking about. And I had one more ESR which I saw where a student has scored a verbal 21 just with 9 mistakes. It happens, guys. And why does it happen? That is the most important question that you guys need to understand, because it is something that basically you have to understand from a logical perspective, that GMAT is the most standardized test in the market. It is tuned to actually identify exactly what are the problems that you are making, what is the skill level that you have. So if you have a low skill level, it will be able to identify that as well. So let's understand why this happened, and that will clear the confusion around this. So again, I've just switched sides. I've kept the verbal 30 on the left and the verbal 41 on the right. So just that is one switch that I have made. So align yourself with that thought process and try to understand the chart here. So this chart, now instead of accuracy, this chart is showing the difficulty level of the questions which was served to the 2 students. And my guess is, if you remember the second student, the verbal 30 guy basically got 4 questions wrong in the first quarter. And looking at his ESR, I can definitely tell you that the questions that he got wrong, the 4 questions that he got wrong, were among the very first few questions. At least 3 of them were among the first 4 or 5 itself. Okay, and that's why you can see that the red dot over here is around the medium level itself. So in the beginning itself, he told the algorithm that I may not have a very strong or consistent performance in the medium questions. So the consistency was not there. He was not able to get those questions right. At least the accuracy was below like I would say 30-35%, something around that. So he was not able to get the questions right, because of which the algorithm reduced difficulty level. The difficulty level went low. So even after having a similar accuracy levels, the questions that were served to that person, the difficulty level of those questions were very different. You have to understand this. This guy on the other end, as in me on the other hand, the two mistakes that I made were somewhere around that medium hard difficulty level. These two mistakes which I made. So initially, the medium questions which were served to me, I was able to get those medium questions correct. So the algorithm gave me much more difficult questions. I made a few mistakes there, but I could get some of them right as well. And that's why the difficulty level went up in the next quarter. You can see that going up. In the next quarter, both of us had a high accuracy. But if you look at the difficulty level, average difficulty level, I showed the algorithm that I have the capability of getting the hard questions right as well. If I compare both these difficulty levels side by side, see how huge a difference it is there. You can think that, okay, the accuracies look similar, but look at the difference in the difficulty level. I showed the algorithm that I can get the medium hard questions right consistently. Okay, this is something which is very important for you to understand. And not just there, in the third quarter also, if you see, my average difficulty level of the correct questions was way higher. Look at this and look at this over here. This is somewhere bit easy medium. This is somewhere medium high only. Okay, so that's the level of difference which is there. You can see over in this ESR. Okay, so it's not about accuracy, guys. It is more about having the skill to get the hard questions right. So Abhiyan has a question. Abhiyan says, and again, this is a question which I get a lot of time. Abhiyan says, should we take more time initially in order to try to answer questions correctly? Abhiyan, I wouldn't say yes to it, simply because I don't believe that just by giving extra time you can get questions right. That is something I believe in. I've seen that multiple times. What I definitely believe in that is that you should not take the initial questions lightly. That's what I believe in. I'm not saying you should take extra time. You should only spend what is ideal. You should not take the initial questions lightly. You should not be skipping the initial questions. Don't do that. That's a bad thing. Okay. So Rashmi Rekha, I'll talk about the strategy to improve and maintain consistency, but let's focus on this first. Okay. So this is the difference. Now, are you guys clear why the difference existed between the two scores? Are you guys clear about this? That why that does the difference exist in these two scorecards? 7 versus 8 mistakes, and you see a 11-point difference. Is this clear to you guys? Why does this difference exist? Okay, great. Happy to hear that Abhiyan has got it, Pujita has got it. I believe others have also got it. Don't see the comments though, but I hope, again, this is a very complex thing, guys. It took me a lot of time to understand this, but I've tried my best to actually make you guys understand through data. Okay, Rashmi, happy to know that you have understood that as well. So Shishatri is saying, can difficulty level be spread across question types? In my opinion, yes, it does spread across question types also. So great, Kartike. And thank you, Arpit, for telling me that. So in simple terms, skill is what matters over accuracy. You should not focus on just getting the questions correct. A lot of people come to me and say, okay, I do the OGs. When I do the OGs, I get a 80% accuracy in them. But when I do a mock test, I don't get even close to that 80 percentile. Why is that happening? People don't understand why that happens, because simply put, they focus on accuracy. They think about doing more questions, getting them right. Having a high accuracy does not translate to a high score. Understand? On GMAT, what matters is a skill level. Okay, and skill is basically the ability to get a question of any difficulty level correct. You should not be positioning yourself in a way that you are only getting the hard question right. Sorry, the easy and medium questions right. You should be also positioning yourself in a way that you can get the hard questions right as well. You should build the skills in that fashion. Okay, so let's move forward then. Let's understand what should be the approach to get a hard 700 plus. So in simplest possible way, the only way to get a 700 plus is, first, you need to make the algorithm serve you hard questions. And how do you do that? By getting the easy and medium questions correct. So you can do that by doing that. And then you need to get the hard questions right also. Not just enough to get the hard questions. Remember the previous case study I talked about. If I had made a mistake of getting the hard questions wrong, I would have messed up. And you, in order to get the hard questions right, you have to build the right skills. And I'll talk about the skills. Okay. Uh, Jay has a question. Can you tell us how do you did you get any getting how did you get okay, so there's some mistake with the sentence, but let me focus on the content. How did you get an experimental question incorrect? Didn't affect your level drop. So again, Jay, which are experimental questions, which ones are not experimental questions? No one knows that. Ideally, experimental questions should not affect your difficulty level. These are just experimental questions, should not affect your score. Okay. Let's take up another case study. So I remember, if you remember, I talked about one more case in point. A lot of people come to me and say, I did not do well on the test because I was not able to get the last few questions correct. I struggled to find time to complete the test. I was not able to focus on the last few questions. A lot of people come and tell me this. And what I'm going to show you next is going to clear this myth around the last few questions. Look at this ESR. Okay, this is again another ESR, verbal ESR, another student. Look at the number of mistakes made by this student. First quarter, 3 mistakes. Second quarter, 1 mistake. Third quarter, another, just 1 more mistake. Total mistakes, 5. Look at the verbal score, 34. You remember my score, 7 mistakes, and I scored a verbal 41. Look at the accuracy in the last quarter, 100%. Everything was correct. I had a 62% accuracy in the last quarter. Now, what do you say with that? Why did the student do poorly even after completing the last quarter pretty well? The reason was simple. When people come and tell me I scored poorly because I got the last quarter, I was not having time for the last quarter, my answer is simple. You did not lose the battle in the last quarter. You lost the battle in the first and the second quarter. That is where you should have picked up better. And just to give you a sense of it, look at this ESR. Again, I know this is from quant. I just wanted to bring a flavor of quant as well. Look at the ESR here. Just a 57% accuracy in the last quarter. And you look at the quant score, 50, which is the second best score that you can get. In fact, getting a 51 is super duper tough these days. In fact, I feel that 50 is the new 51. Like it's very, very tough to get a 51 nowadays. 57% accuracy. 3 questions wrong, still 50. I know a student, again, I did not have the ESI, that's why I did not bring it. I know a student who did not have time to complete the last 3 questions in verbal. He marked all those 3 questions randomly in the last 20-30 seconds. And can you guess the verbal score of that student? That student scored a verbal 44. Last 3 questions, he had just 20-30 seconds. Imagine that, guys. So if you think it's the last questions which is affecting your score, please think again. That's definitely not going to happen unless obviously you're screwing up with the first few sets also. Okay. So this is another case in point which I wanted to discuss to just help you understand that if you're focusing on the last, if you're focusing on the pacing, you're only looking at a part of the problem. You're not looking at the entire problem. The problem is much bigger if you're just looking at pacing. If you're not having time for the last quarter, you're not scoring poorly because of the last quarter. You're scoring poorly because in the initial quarters, even after spending time, you did not have the capability of getting the questions right. So your problem is consistency. Your problem is not timing. And that's what brings me to the next important topic. How do I optimize time taken to solve questions? And understand it, guys. You cannot, and mind my words, you cannot ever optimize the time taken on the day of the test. You cannot do that. I was in that situation, 14 questions, 19 minutes. I could not reduce the time and also get a high accuracy at the same time. Both things don't happen. Okay. One of the two can only happen. You can only optimize time taken in your practice phase of learning. Don't believe in that on the mocks, it will happen directly. And why am I saying this? Simple reason, because I hear people taking mocks every 3 or 4 days. I come across those people multiple times during our discussions. I come across those people. That's a very poor strategy. They think that the more mocks they take, the better their timing will get. It never happens. Your timing will only reduce in the practice phase of your learning. So let's talk a little about that. So identify the core timing issues. Understand it this way, guys. You cannot just solve a problem by looking at the symptom. Okay, you are taking more than 2 minutes to solve a question. That's a symptom. But what is the core problem? Identify that problem. The core problem could be twofold. It is possible that your timing is concept specific. What I mean by concept specific is that, for example, you're taking extra time, you're spending extra time on specific questions. For example, boldface in CR, or could be PNC in word problems, or comparison in quant, or comparison in quant, or whatever. Like, it could be any topic. Comparison not in quant, my bad. This I what I meant was here comparison in sentence correction, but it could be a specific topic where you're taking extra time. Okay, so identify that first. And how do you identify that? Obviously, one way is to take error logs. Another way is, if you're using GMAT Wiz, if you're a GMAT Wiz student, all these error logs will be automatically maintained for you. In fact, you will actually get timing level feedback on the portal. You will actually see what are your timing issues, which areas you're taking extra time. Okay, in fact, automatically the portal will tell you that. You don't even have to go sift through the data. It will be clear in front of you. So understand in which topics you're taking extra time. If it is topic specific, you need to work on that. I'll talk about how to work on the concept specific issues as well. But first thing you need to start by doing is understand where the gaps lie. Okay, that is very critical. The next thing is, it could be application related. When I say application related, it is possible that the timing issue that you guys are facing is not concept specific. It is related to a specific module. For example, you're taking extra time for CR in general. Your timing for SC is fine. Your timing for RC is also fine. But in CR, you are taking extra time. What that means is, the way you are approaching the CR questions, that approach needs to be tweaked. That approach needs to be changed. So your focus should be on that approach rather than concepts. So in order to improve your timing, step one, identify what leads to extra time being taken. Okay. The next step, if it is a concept specific timing issue. So again, I'm just showing you how you can see that on the platform. If you are on GMAT Wiz, you can come here, see in SC, click on timing. It will show you very easily in which areas you are taking extra time. So clearly pronouns is one area where the student is taking extra time, modifiers is another, and so on. So you can see exactly in which concepts your timing is extra, in which concepts your timing is less, and all of that. So it is important for you to first understand it in that fashion, that okay, in quant also, in which topics you are taking extra time. Okay, once that is done, you should start working on this. So step one after that would be review the topic. Go to that particular topic, cover your concept gaps around them. If you watch some videos, again, if you're a GMAT Wiz student, you'll have a proper module for that each topic. So cover those concept gaps first, because if you cover them, you should be in a good position to improve. Then you should solve 10 questions, but focus on one very important aspect over here, guys. Do one question at a time, not 10 questions back to back. Because if it is concept specific, even then there is a small possibility that that is happening because of the approach that you are following. Your approach also needs to be improved upon that particular concept. So do 10 questions. Ideally, it should be 10 different questions. Then when I say different, obviously they will be you'll not be solving 10 same question 10 times. What I mean by different is not that there should be different questions, those should be testing different aspects of that particular topic. Okay. And again, if you're a GMAT Wiz student, you don't have to worry about it. There is a file called Concept Booster, which automatically gives you all varieties of questions from a particular topic. Okay. So you do 10 questions at a time, doing one question at a time. After solving the question, review the solution properly, step by step. Every single step should be reviewed. And when you are doing that, identify the waste in time. Okay, identify this. This is important, guys. See, what happens in many cases is we end up spending extra time on a question just because we do multiple reads. And I'm actually going to talk about it a little more in the next slide and so on. So identify waste. Look at each and every line of the solution. See, okay, this is how it was supposed to be solved. And this is how I solved it. So this is the right approach. This is my approach. What is the difference in the two line of reasonings? Where is the waste? Where did I waste the time? Identify that, improve on that. That's the second step. And once you do that, then you can move to the third step, which is to solve 30 to 40 questions on that particular topic in sets of 10 questions and gradually reduce the time. So for example, let's say after doing these questions, like this step 2, you are taking, let's say 2 minute 20 seconds on an average. So then you should take 10 questions set, Reduce the time from 2 minute 20 seconds to 2 minute 10 seconds. From there to maybe 2 minute 5 seconds or 2 minute, and so on. Okay, so this is something which is very, very important for you guys. All this is this clear to all of you guys? Quick yes, no? Is this clear to all of you guys? Any questions on this part till now? Okay. Okay, great. Arpit says yes. Ashu, you can actually watch the recording later. It will actually be there later on as well. Okay. Happy to know Pujita, Jay, and Karthike, all of you are clear with this. That's great to hear, guys. So this is how you work on the concept-specific timing. So understand which concepts you are bad at, work on those concepts first. Let's talk about application. How do you work on application? Okay, how do you work on application? So now, for us to understand how to work on application, it is important for us to understand what is the problem with application. Why do we make mistakes that we make over there? So when it comes to timing issues with application, let's say in CR questions, you are taking extra time. Generally, what people do is they will actually start to read the question stem quickly. That's where they start. They read the question stem quickly. And when they do that, they generate a rough understanding of what's being stated. That's what they do. They read the question stem quickly. They have a rough understanding of what's being stated. They understand what is it about. They don't have a very clear understanding of the question stem as much as well. And with that rough understanding, generally it's easy to eliminate 2 to 3 choices. They can eliminate the 2 to 3 choices confidently when they do that. However, they get stuck in 2 to 3 close choices later on. They will get stuck in 2 to 3 close choices later on when they do such a thing, because you have a rough understanding of what's being stated. Now, what happens when you get stuck with 2 or 3 close choices? Let's see some comments from you. What do you guys do in case you get stuck with 2 or 3 close choices? What do you guys do in that case? If you get stuck with 2 or 3 close choices, what do you guys do? Let's see some responses from you. When you get stuck with 2 or 3 close choices, what do you guys do? Okay, I see some responses. Karthike says, I read the question again. Okay, go with the best guess is what Arpit says. Read the paragraph again. Rashmi says the same. Read again. Puarik says the same. Pujita says reread. Yes, and that's what most of us do. We reread the question. We reread the choices multiple times. That's what we do, right? And obviously, when you reread, you sometimes don't understand. The time pressure comes to you. You mark some answer as time is running out. You know you have to move to the next question. You end up marking some answer randomly. Okay. And in the entire process, what you are doing is you are actually saving time in the first read. Okay. You are saving time in the first read by doing it very quickly. You do it in 20 to 30 seconds. However, the problem is you're able to eliminate 2 choices also, 2 to 3 choices in 20-30 seconds. So by the time you have completed 1 or 2, 1 minute, maybe 1 minute, 1 minute, 15 seconds, you are down to 2 choices or 3 choices. But the moment you get stuck in those 2, you spend 20-30 seconds on that, thinking about those. The moment you reread, you end up wasting 1 to 1.5 minutes. I've seen students doing that. I interact with many students on a daily basis. And I've seen students doing this. They get stuck, they revolve round and round, round and round. Okay, read this. This is what it is. This is what it is. And then as time comes to, like, the time is running out, they end up marking something. So in the end, they end up putting 2 to 3.5 minutes to solve the question. And trust me, this is the time-saving irony which is there. In order to save time, they end up putting extra time. Okay, so this is what people do. Like as Parik is saying, in the end, after realizing the time has been wasted, go with the best option, not confident one. So this happens, and that's why the problem is. And if you understand where the entire problem started was when you read the question stem too quickly. That's where the problem started. If you did not read the question stem quickly, if you actually spend time on reading the question stem better, you would have definitely saved some time. I'll show you that as well. Okay, but why does this happen? This happens sometimes because people don't know how to read the question stem. One biggest reason in most cases when I interact with students, I see they don't have the right approach in place. They don't know how to read the question stem. What do they infer from it? They don't know, they don't have an approach. They jump too soon into solving the question. That's the biggest reason. So first thing you need to work on is improve your approach. If you're struggling with timing, improve your approach. The second reason why this happens is they're worried about timing. And if you're worried about timing, you don't have to worry about timing. I told you about how the algorithm works. I'm going to also tell you the pacing strategy. But worrying about timing is not going to help you. I have a simple point. Like, you cannot reduce the time taken to do an activity just by thinking about doing it faster. If you do it faster, just by thinking about doing it faster, you're only going to compromise on the quality. You cannot improve the quality or maintain the quality and have a less time using the same method. You have to use a different method in order to do that. Okay, so that's what is very important for you to understand. Now, why I talk about this is very important, because when I was a student in your place, the most common approaches that I heard for RC were something like this: read the last line and the first line of every paragraph and jump to the questions. Do this, save time, guys. First line, last line, read it for every para. You understand what is there in the para, at least get an idea, jump to the questions, come back for each question to the right para. Why waste time on reading everything? Second approach I hear is read the passage very quickly in 2 minutes, skim through the passage, take a mental note of which information is present over where, and refer back to the passage for every single question. And please tell me, which of these approaches do you guys follow? Okay, I would like to hear from you. Like, is it making sense or not? Is this something which you guys are also doing or not? I would want to know this, because trust me, I spent a lot of my time and effort on approach 2. In fact, for about 70 to 80% of my preparation in the initial phases, and I'm a person who has struggled big time in verbal. Okay, it was not easy for me to score a verbal 41. I followed approach 2. I wasted a lot of time doing that. Approach 3, again, not many people advocate this, but some people still do that. Read the question first so you know what you are looking for. Okay, Vikas says I also do approach 2. Jay also does approach 2. In fact, that's most likely going to be the most popular one. Some people do approach 1 as well. Okay, but trust me, it never works. And why it does not work? Understand this. Why it does not work? Simple point. If you read the question too quickly in the first read, you end up saving some time. Obviously, 2 to 3 minutes is what you can read the passage in. However, a rough idea of what's mentioned is only that you achieve from it. You only achieve a rough idea. And when you achieve a rough idea, you have to reread when you have to move to the choices. You have to end up rereading. And when you reread, you end up spending 1.5 minutes per question. So you think that you are saving time by reading it fast, but in reality, you are wasting time because you are spending more time on each question. So why not put in that time on the very beginning itself? Because if you're doing this, the time per passage is 8 to 9 minutes. Okay? Now, the 720 plus scorers, they read the passage properly in the very first go. They might spend 4 to 5 minutes in doing that depending on the difficulty level, but they have a crystal clear understanding of what's being stated. And when they have a crystal clear understanding of what's being stated, they are able to eliminate answer choices very confidently, and that helps them solve each question in as less as 40 seconds. Trust me, guys, is as less as 40 seconds. And a very valid point Shashadri has. She says, I actually read the question stem and slowly, then try to eliminate the options, and I still get the questions wrong. So one very important point here is that you should understand it this way, that just reading slowly does not mean you're getting a clear understanding. What you need to have is a crystal clear understanding of why that particular thing is written. Not just focus on what is written. Focus on why is it written. That is something which is very, very important. In fact, I'll just share very quickly a video of one of the students who was very similar situation as yours. He used multiple courses. He studied for GMAT for a long, long time and was still not able to get a 740 kind of a number. And he focused on reading the question stem properly. Okay. So, and the kind of difference that it created in terms of his confidence level, in terms of the accuracy that he got, he was able to score a 740 with confidence. So you can watch this story. This is basically one of the students who has achieved a 740 even after like studying a lot and using multiple courses, including like some of the best known courses in the industry like Magoosh in GMAT and all of that. But he was still able to improve his score by focusing on reading the right way. Okay, so make sure that you can actually like do the same thing. So this is the video you can watch. You can bookmark this link and check it out later on if you want to. So this is something which will inspire you to focus on the right reading strategies. Okay. uh, 40 seconds per question. Yes, Shashadri, that is what it is. What about if my retention power is very low and I read every RC in 4-5 minutes but come to the passage again to check the answer? How to make the approach better? So Chirag, again, we have RC specific webinars that you can also watch. Like I'll try and share the link in the last part of the webinar. But understand it this way. When you watch a movie, do you have to remember what you watched in the beginning of the movie? You don't, right? You kind of remember all of that. The reason is not just it's visual, it's also engaging. In most cases, when we are not able to retain what we have read, it's because we are not engaging ourselves in the content. That's something which is very, very important. Okay. So focus on why is it written, not what is written. If you focus on what is written, that's the thing that you have to focus on. If you focus on the intent, you'll never forget because you are not focusing on what is written, you're focusing on why is it written. Okay. Again, as I said, I can share the webinar recording later on. But the involved and evolved reading approach is what I believe that you should follow. You should think like the author. You should focus on understanding the author's point of view. Okay. Break sentences into small chunks, derive its meaning, understand the meaning of each part, and for subsequent sentences, try to relate back to the previous sentence. That is very, very important, guys. And in order to do this, you have to understand what the author is trying to tell you. And from there, use the transition words and conjunctions that will help you relate the meaning and summarize each para. Okay. So learning the right approach is very critical, guys. Okay. Let me take a question. During exam, our brain is already exhausted and pressurized. How to keep ourselves calm to understand the passage or paragraph in slow read? So Rashmi Rekha, again, you cannot do that on the exam directly. As I said, you have to practice it before. That's the first thing I started with. You cannot save time on the test. You cannot apply any strategy directly on the test. If you are doing the same thing in the practice, you're training yourself to do it. When you're exhausted and pressurized, you're pressurized because you don't feel confident about your skills. I come across a lot of people who feel pressurized in verbal, don't feel pressurized in quant. I ask them, why does this happen that way? You're not pressurized in quant, you're pressurized in verbal. And the other way also happens. The reason for that is when you do quant and you're not feeling pressurized, it's because you know when you're marking an answer that this is the right answer. Okay? You're not confused about what you're marking. You're not you're not doing a double thought or say like second thought on what you just marked. And that's why I said watch Williams' interview. Okay, just a second, guys. So watch his interview, watch this story. It will inspire you. He talks about this exact aspect that earlier when I was new to the entire thing, when I prepared and spent a lot of energy on doing this, I was never confident when I was marking the answer. But now when I actually solve a question, I'm very, very confident about why am I answering that particular question. And that kind of takes it forward. I don't have to think about what happened previously. I don't have to worry about whether I did the last question right or not. And that's what helped me score that 740. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. So how do you learn the right approach? So I talked about concept-specific issues. If you have concept-specific timing issues, you have to first identify the concepts where your timing is high. And I told you what to do over there as well. I'm telling you now, if you have approach-specific issues, how you should work on that. So step one, understand the method. Understand what are the steps involved in it. It is not just about reading it well. Okay, a lot of people read it well, but what do you do when you're reading it? What do you focus on when you're reading it? Understand the method in depth. Okay. The second step after that is solve 15 questions one at a time. This is gonna help you improve your understanding of the approach. So make sure when you're doing this, you're focusing on reviewing the explanation. Like review the explanation for every single question. ensure that you avoid deviations from the method. You should be able to see that, okay, this is how I approached it and this is how it should have been approached. Do this analysis, do this understanding, do this level of analysis for every single one of those questions. Only when you do that, you kind of understand whether you are truly understanding the approach or not. Because if you're not truly understanding the approach, it is very important that you fix that first before moving on to actually applying it on multiple questions using practice. Okay. So let me help you understand how to do this. So this is a CR question which I've given in front of you. Again, let me tell you upfront, we are not going to solve this question. I'm only going to show you how to use the solutions. What is the right way to use the solutions to learn the right method? Okay, so go through this question. I'm giving you 1 minute to read this question. That's all I want you to do. Read the question stem, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, whatever you take. And then I'm going to show you how to review the solutions. That's going to be the more important part. Okay, I'm going to be muted for a minute. So Shishit, if the screen is blurred, you need to set the setting on the, let's say the 180p, I think, 1080p basically. Yeah, so the logo is actually coming in between the text. Again, I can reduce the screen size. Maybe that will slightly help. Okay, let me, okay, wait a second. Yep. So I guess 1 minute has already passed. So as I said, I'm not going to solve this question. The objective is not to solve the question. Basically, I wanted you guys to read the argument. I know some of you may not have been able to read a word because the GMAT Club logo is in was obstructing it. So I'm going to give you, let's say, 30 seconds more to read it. Okay, just do it quickly. Okay, guys. So again, I've not even looked at the answer myself, to be very honest, and I don't want you to focus on that answer or solving the question. As I said, my objective is something else. I want you guys to focus on that. I don't remember the answer to this question. I have not solved it myself. As I said, objective is completely different. What I want you guys to understand is not just getting this question right. Focus on the bigger picture. I want you guys to focus on how to understand and review the solution. Okay, so what I want you to do is understand it this way, that, okay, when you read the first line of the argument, okay, identify whether you came up with this inference or not. That total area of currently cultivated land is equal to total area of unexplored land. In the first read itself, if you came to this inference after reading this, you're on the right track. Not in the second read, not in the third read. This is how you should look at the solution, that, okay, did I understand it in this fashion? Then when you read the second sentence, Did you combine the information in the first sentence and the second sentence and come to this inference that there is a lot more cultivable land on earth than the current All right, guys. Now can you hear me? I guess there was an internet issue in between, which kind of uh, actually created an issue. So there was an internet issue at my end. I hope it should be okay now. I guess it should be okay now. I hope it is okay now. You guys can tell me in a quick yes in the chat. That will great. That will be great. So what I wanted to focus on was that you should be reading in this fashion, that okay, when you read the first sentence, this is how you understood it. When you read the third sentence, this is the kind of inference that you draw, and so on. If you're reading it in the same fashion, if you're reading it in the same fashion as I said, it is very, very my objective is not to solve this question. My objective is to help you understand, review the solution. So again, not necessarily, don't just focus on this question. If you have any questions around it, please send it to us on support@gmatwiz.com. I'll be happy to take that up. But as I said, focus on the bigger picture. If you have to focus on application, what you should look at is, did I actually review it without doing proper analysis? And they will only do the analysis in the end. And the problem with doing the analysis in the end is you will get stuck with one or two things which will not stick in your mind, and you will actually face an issue. Okay, so that is something which is worrying. Now, most people face this challenge that they do not know a source which provides the solution in a methodical way. They go about looking at the solutions. In most of the cases, the solutions are not very methodical. And when they look at those solutions, they're not able to see whether they're approaching it the right fashion or not. So this was a very, very common issue, which I also faced as a student, and many people face this issue because most resources do not provide a methodical solution. And that's why at GMAT Wiz, we came up with this idea that to help students out, we have to provide a methodical solution for every single question, and not just for SC, CR, or RC, for quant, every single area. The approach has to be the best. Approach should be in a way that it works for every single question, and it should be very detailed overall. And that's why to create every single solution, we spend about 2 times the effort on writing the solutions overall. That way you get to access the best quality solutions overall. And we came up with the idea of the concept booster. I was talking about this as well a little while earlier, where I told you that you get one question at a time in the concept booster. Each question is handpicked, covers a different aspect which is tested on that particular topic, and you get a detailed solution. You analyze the solution after you solve the question. And the reason why we give you one question is because you remember how exactly you approached it step by step. And the solution will be in the same level of detail. As you saw earlier, I just showed you a very small 1/3 part of the solution, just the question stem analysis. There is a lot of solution after that as well. So you look at the solution, analyze the solution well, and then you're able to figure out the gaps in your application. And this is something which is very important, guys. So if you're a GMAT Wiz student, make sure that you're focusing on these aspects. You should, and even if you're not a GMAT Wiz student, you should still make sure that you are spending 2 or 3 times the effort on reviewing the solution compared to what you spend on the question stem. Okay, that is what is very critical, guys. Okay, I think there is this little bit of a internet issue at my end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop my video altogether. I'm only going to focus on the screen and the audio, so that at least you are able to hear me properly. Okay, so let me know in case any voice related issues is what you are facing. I would try to switch over to a different internet connection overall. Okay, so mastering application of concepts. So first step is understanding, learning the right approach. The second step is mastering it. How do you master it? After learning, practice 30-40 questions using the approach and internalize the method, because timing will not reduce by thinking about reducing the timing. Timing will only reduce when you automatically use the question approach multiple times, and that reduces the overall time. So review the solutions for every single question, and that is important. So let's move forward and let's look at the next case study. So I talked about how to identify the timing related issues. I told you all of that. Let's see how a student used this to get to a target score. So Akshat, one more student who was facing a similar issue, actually got to a 730 from a 650 in just 24 days. And I'm gonna just share his case study. How did he do that? So basically, the first thing that he did was he identified the root issue, and that's what you should also be doing. Identify the root cause. Why are you struggling with what you are struggling? So he looked at his ESR, saw that he was struggling in verbal. In verbal, the weak areas that he had was CR and RC. So he focused his attention over there. Also, what he saw was that under the anxiety in the time pressure when he was there and the test, he took 2 minutes 38 seconds on an average for the first quarter questions, which was slightly easier in difficulty. He achieved a high accuracy in that, but what happened after that is he actually started panicking for the next set of questions. And he actually used the wrong test taking strategy also. He saved more time for the end by compromising on the time in the beginning of the quarters, in the second quarter and the third quarter, just to complete the test, because he started off poorly. And you see the impact on the verbal score. He had a 38. He made a lot of mistakes in the second and the third quarter. He went back to the drawing board. He did not lose hope. He went back to the drawing board, focused on fixing the core issues. In the GMAT 650 attempt that he got, this is the snapshot of the ESR which I showed you. In the 730 attempt, in just 24 days, he was able to improve both his CR and RC skills while keeping SC at the same level. Okay? And how he achieved this is more important. How he worked on CR and RC was he focused on improving and understanding of the methodologies. As I said, his issue was application based because he was getting very specific areas wrong, like CR and RC. Okay, so that is something which he worked on first. He first worked on improving his methodologies, and framework driven pre-thinking is, for example, what he learned at GMAT Wiz. Okay, the second thing that he did was he reviewed the solutions in depth for the correct questions too. Earlier, he was not doing this as much, but now he started reviewing the solutions for even the correct questions. That's another mistake which people do, that they only review the solutions when they get a question wrong. Also review the solution if you get a question right. Please do that always. And when he was doing that, he identified the patterns in the incorrect choices. So we have this habit at GMAT Wiz of telling you why each choice is incorrect. We classify each error into distortion, out of scope, irrelevant, and so on. So this is something which is there at GMAT Wiz, which is provided in the solutions. So what he used to do was, when he was solving the question, he would identify that, okay, this choice I marked incorrect because I feel this is distortion, and this is something which is out of scope. And then he used to tally that analysis with the analysis which was provided in the GMAT Wiz course. And then he revisited weak areas to improve on timing. And that's what he did from the methodology standpoint. Another thing that he did was he strategized to reduce the exam anxiety, because there's another issue that he faced. He was anxious during the test. How he did that? He reduced the study time to half. In fact, this is a very important tip for those of you who are retakers. I tell this all the time to people. Please make sure that you're not cramming too much. Okay. So Pujita, next part is also going to be about the test taking strategy. And this is about the algorithm. And that's what I'm telling you, right? Just focus on what I'm saying. You'll understand how important this part is. So reducing the study strategy to half, reducing the time to half is very, very important in case you are pressurized, if you are anxious. Because if you cram too much, you kind of study too much, and then you start losing your focus from quality to quantity. And sometimes when you study for half the time that you can, you distance yourself, and that helps you in understanding application related errors better. You're able to understand where you're going wrong with your approach. And then he also made sure when he was feeling anxious, in fact, in the second test also, where he scored a 730, this is the ESR from that. In the very first quarter, he again felt a little anxious. But in that case, again, I was discussing with him or the interview. So in that case, he took strategic pauses. He took some time out. He paused. He put his pen down, thought about it, took it lightly, and did well and was able to score a verbal 40 in that attempt itself. Okay, so this is just to show you what kind of miraculously great results you can achieve within 24 days if you actually focus on these strategies itself. Okay, so let's now focus on the timing strategy for verbal. So with all this understanding, let's summarize the learnings that we have. How does it translate to the right test taking strategy for verbal? Okay, so let me be upfront with you. This strategy will work for anyone who is targeting up to a verbal 42. If you are at a verbal 42 already, and if you're targeting, let's say, a 44, 45 kind of a number in verbal, yeah, there is some bit of tweak that is required for to this strategy. But overall, verbal 42 is something which can easily take you to a 760 if you are getting a quant 50 along with it. So this works for most people. The strategy is focus on the first 27 questions. They matter the most. Nothing else matters more than the first 27 questions. Okay, that is what you need to understand. First 27 questions matter the most. The first 3 quarters matter the most. And give questions their due time as required. I'm not saying give them extra time. I don't mean to say that, okay, 27 questions, you give extra time, you get them right. That's not the objective. The idea is if you give questions the due time, you will get those questions right. Okay, don't rush, don't spend extra time, don't do either of the two. Just give them the due time. And if needed, if you're feeling short of time, in the last quarter, just do half of the questions. Don't worry about the half or whatever you can do, but whatever you do it properly. Okay, don't compromise on quality. Few more advices. Don't make consecutive mistakes. Consecutive mistakes are penalized very heavily on GMAT, and that's why RC becomes very important. Okay, so this is something which is very important that you should focus on, that you should not make consecutive mistakes at all. Okay, as much as possible. Never leave questions unattempted. If you have 30 seconds in the end, just focus on completing the test, marking everything rather than letting the time run out. Okay, and try these strategies on a few mocks beforehand. Don't try these strategies directly on the test, because any strategy you should not directly apply on the test. Get a hold over those strategies first. Okay, and remember, does having more time for the first 27 questions solve the problem? The answer is no. So identify the core reason in case you are taking more time while solving the question, so that you can reduce the time taken. Okay, so what is the timing strategy for purple? So this is how you should pace yourself. In the first quarter, ideally, the average time that you should be taking should be about 1 minute 40 seconds. And again, I'm covering this aspect because a lot of times I hear students coming to me and saying that, okay, I saw somewhere that the right way to strategize is that linearly pace yourself. For example, in verbal, you have about 1.8 minutes per question. So by the time you are at the middle of the test, as in you have completed 18 questions, you should have exactly 32 to 33 minutes left. That is how you should pace yourself. I don't agree with that. That's the wrong strategy to follow, unless you are obviously someone who is a very mature, like who is already at a 40 plus score. Then it's a different thing. But I guess most of you are here in the webinar to learn something new, so you are yet to achieve that number. So make sure that you pace yourself in this fashion. The average timings I'm showing you on the screen. And the reason is very simple. I'm not saying that you can look at a question and tell yourself that, okay, this is the amount of time that I'm going to take. That's not how it works. You should give each question its due time. In the first quarter, you take 1 minute 40 seconds on an average, just because the questions in the first quarter are going to be easy to medium. In the second quarter, on the other hand, the questions are going to be medium to medium hard. The questions difficulty level will increase. So should your average time. In the third quarter, if you're doing well, again, all of this is under the assumption that you have the capability of getting the questions right. If you're doing well, you will again get hard questions. So you should be devoting about 2 minutes 20 seconds over there. In the last quarter, again, you can see 1 minute 20 seconds. But what I don't not mean to say is that you should be giving 1 minute 20 seconds to every question. You should rather be spending 2 minutes or 2 minutes slightly more on every on the questions that you attempt, and not try to attempt everything. The idea is whatever you attempt them properly. That's what the idea is. Okay, and the baseline score for each section that you should target in your practice phase should be this. You should be targeting about a minute 30 seconds for sentence correction questions. For CR questions, you should be targeting about 2 minutes. So Shashadri, this is whatever I was exactly going to talk about. So again, there's a little bit of a lag when I'm speaking and when I see your responses. So I'm not going to interact a lot now. But CR average time should be 2 minutes. Your RC average time should be 1 minute 50 seconds approximately. And these are just baseline numbers. Understand that everyone has their strengths, their weaknesses. So in case you are strong in a particular area, you should be adjusting this time by 20 seconds downward. So if you are, let's say, strong in sentence correction, you should not be taking 1 minute 30 seconds in sentence correction. Your objective should be to take about 1 minute 10 seconds for every sentence correction question. And if you're bad at weak at something, then you should be taking about 20 seconds extra on that. Okay. While practicing, devote the right amount of time for each difficulty level, something that should happen naturally. Don't try to say that, okay, I will solve every question in 2 minutes. Don't be in that habit. Try to focus on taking every question logically, giving every question its due time. Okay. Avnish is asking how many questions are there in each quarter. So again, Avnish, you can look at it this way, that in verbal 9 questions are there in each quarter. Think of it like this. And in quant, you have about 8 questions in each quarter. So let's talk about the timing strategy for quant. Again, I want to talk about a little about these two ESRs. So if you see these two ESRs, again, I generally ask questions that, okay, what is the difference that you see? But I know that there's a lag of about 30-40 seconds in when I am saying this and you are hearing it. So I don't want to wait for your responses. I'm just telling you, if you look at these two ESRs over here, you will see that the only difference is that the first student got a 86% in the first quarter and the second student got 100% in the first quarter. That one difference led to a difference of 2 points in quant, which is equal to difference of 20 points in overall score. And what about the importance of the last 15 questions? If you look at these 3 ESRs on the screen, you will see that in all 3 ESRs, the first 2 quarters, all of these students have done really well. In the last 2 quarters, their scores differ. And let me summarize the accuracy in the last 2 quarters versus the score that they got. The accuracy of this guy in the last 2 quarters is basically somewhere around 66%. 2 out of every 3 questions he got right. Score is Q50. Look at this person. The accuracy is around 50%. Score is Q48. Look at this person, for instance. The accuracy is around 35%. Score is Q47. Okay. What this tells is, basically, if you are doing well on the individual areas, like in the first 2 quarters, and you don't end up doing so well in the last 2 quarters, you kind of get a pretty decent score, even if you're not doing very well. Okay, I'm not saying it should not do well on the last 2 quarters, but all I'm saying is that you should be focusing a lot more on the first 2 quarters. Okay, so the main strategy in quant is that you should get the first 15 questions right. Don't try to save time over there. Again, I'm not saying you should do more, put in more time for the first 15 questions. All I'm saying is you should not try to save time. Sometimes what happens is, when you do questions in quant initially, you get easy questions. Obviously, the test starts with a medium level or easy level. So you start feeling that, okay, I can get these questions right even and then I can save time for the more difficult questions. Try not to do that. In the initial at least the 7-8 questions, if you know another method of solving the question, try to use that method as well. Try different method, try a different method to just check your questions, especially for the DS ones. And don't do calculations too fast, because sometimes when you do calculations too fast, you end up making a mistake. Okay, and try to maintain a decent accuracy till in the 3rd quarter also, as decent as possible. Then if you even compromise a little on the performance in the 4th quarter, it won't affect you as much overall. And in short, if you're short on time, then solve questions selectively. What I mean by that is that in some cases, you know that in some areas you're not good. For example, I scored a quant 50, but I still know that if I actually do the, let's say, the geometry questions, at least the hard ones, I'm not very great at it. So in a geometry question, if it is a hard question, and I've spent about 1 minute or a little more than 1 minute, and I still have no clue how I'm gonna go ahead with this, so I would rather actually go ahead and guess that question rather than spending time. So all I'm saying is that you should focus on like the selectively doing questions and focusing on more on the questions that you are good at towards the end as possible. And one important thing, you need to be prepared to handle this strategy. And in order to be prepared to handle this strategy, you need to be prepared to get easy and medium questions right. This is the most important takeaway for quant guys. You need to be prepared to tackle the easy and medium questions from any topic, including your weak ones. I said I'm not good at geometry. Okay, but even then I made sure that I have the capability of getting the easy and medium questions right from any area in geometry. And I tell this because many people make this rookie mistake that they will not do a topic completely. They will ignore permutation combination completely. They will ignore coordinate geometry completely. That is a very wrong thing to do, guys. Understand it this way, that you don't know from which topic you're going to get the very first question. You don't know from which topic you're going to get the next question, and so on. That is something which is not in your control. So if you focus on not doing any topic at all, and you end up getting even an easy or medium question from that topic in the beginning, you will struggle to get it right, and that will adversely affect your score. So please make sure that at least you are building the skill to get the easy and medium questions right from any topic. And trust me, it does not take a lot of effort to get the easy and medium questions right from your weak areas as well. It does take a lot of effort to get the hard questions right from a weak area, that I agree with. But for the easy and medium questions, generally, if you focus on learning the concepts properly and solve a decent number of questions, you will be able to do the questions right. Okay, so this is something which is important. So Avnish, the questions are at the end, if we do guesswork, then how much marks we should lose? Suppose if we mark 5 consecutive questions and they all go wrong. So Avnish, as I said, I've seen people, I showed you some ESRs. Exactly how much points you lose can vary between 1 to 3, depending on how you're performing overall. But that's the range which I feel will happen. What is the timing strategy for quant? So ideally, you should pace yourself in this fashion, because 1 minute 30 seconds in the first quarter, because the medium to medium hard questions is what you generally get in the first quarter. So that is the average time that you should be taking in the first quarter. Second quarter, about 2 minutes 10 seconds, because the questions get too difficult if you're doing well. Again, all of this is under the assumption that you are doing well on the quant section. So second quarter, about 2 minutes 10 seconds. Third quarter, maybe about 2 minutes 40 seconds also, because things get a little more challenging from there. And in the fourth quarter, you can balance out the entire timing with whatever is left with you. So that is the idea. That is how you should pace yourself in the quant section. Okay. So this is how you should go about pacing yourself, guys. All right. So let's look at some additional advice. So while practicing, devote right amount of time for every difficulty level. I've seen this with many students, that they think that, okay, every quant question should be solved in 2 minutes. No. If it is a hard question, even I think expert will take a little more than 2 minutes to solve it. So understand that aspect and accept that if you're taking a little more time for hard questions, it is fine. I also remember in the third quarter, I also took more than 2.5 minutes to solve a question. But what is important is I can get a question right by spending that much time. So don't try and over optimize your timing as well. That is another important thing. Okay. So mixed bag of questions you can do. It depends completely, Pujita. So I had a weak area in geometry. So what strategy I followed was that first let me build the capability of getting the easy and medium questions right. And once that is done, then I will focus on getting the hard questions, skill up, pace up myself in a way that I'm able to get the hard questions right as well. So that is how I did it. So obviously it depends on where you are with respect to your prep, and that's how you should decide and go ahead with it. Okay, so this is about it. Medium to medium hard is 600 to 650. In fact, 650 to 700 is what I would say, Rashmi Rekha. Okay. All right. So let's look at the next thing. Identify comfort areas, and as I said, be selective from the third quarter if something is not from your comfort area. And don't take simple questions too lightly, especially the DS ones. And if you know 2 methods to solve, use them to solve the medium questions. Again, there were a lot of other cases studies which I wanted to take, but we have a hard stop at basically 9:15. There's another webinar generally happens. So I'll quickly just talk about the sequencing basically that you should follow. So in which sequence should you start? Like, should you start with quant first or should you start with verbal first? Now, there are two schools of thought over here. First school of thought is you start with your strong suit. Like, you start with the strong area and do well on it. Basically, people who believe in this school of thought, just give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. So basically, people who believe in the first school of thought say that if you start strong, you gain confidence. And then when you move to your weak areas, you do well on them because you gain confidence, and you're someone who require a lot of confidence in order to do well. However, the second school of thought says you utilize your focus. When you join the test or you start the test, you're the most active at that point of time. So ideally focus on your weak section first. Do the weak section because in your weak section, you would require a lot more focus. You would require a lot more attention. So if you focus on your weak section first, you do it first, you do it when you are at the highest attention level at that point, and then you can actually work on the strong, like slightly strong areas as well, because for the strong areas, you will not need as much attention. So even if you're a little tired, you can actually work on the uh, strong areas later on. So these are two schools of thoughts which are there. Personally speaking, I generally like the second school of thought because I kind of feel that initially I have a lot more focus. I can actually use that focus and get a better outcome out of it. But as I said, there are two different school of thoughts. This has two different benefits. So I recommend you should apply both school of thoughts on a mock test, one on each mock test at least, and see like which school of thought works best for you. In fact, in the initial part of my prep, I only focused on thought one. I only always used to start with quant first and always did verbal later. In fact, 90% of the mocks I did in that fashion. In the later half, I got aware of the second school of thought also. And then I took only few mocks, but that kind of changed my results drastically. And I now start always with verbal. However, my score in quant and verbal are very similar, but I feel slightly more comfortable with quant. Okay. So this is how I would say about the school of thought. In case now I'm opening it for any Q&A. So again, some key takeaways. I wanted to discuss this, but we have very less time. So quick, if in case you want to get in touch with me, you can always get in touch with me on piyush@gmatwiz.com. In case you have any questions right now, feel free to discuss, like ask them over here. You can also connect with me in case you want to know more about how you should strategize your prep and how we can help you. GMAT Wiz can help you in doing so. You can check out with me. You can schedule a call with me using this link. Also, I'll take up a few questions which are there. Chirag is saying, how to do long RCs which consist of 5 paras and take around 5 to 6 minutes to read. Okay, so again, I'm gonna help you with that as well. Let me give you the link of an RC webinar that we did. This will give you a pretty good idea about the RC thing. Because again, just telling you in 1 minute is difficult. So if you watch this webinar, it should give you a pretty good idea about how to tackle RCs completely. So this is a webinar that we conducted on RC. This should help you, Chirag, get a pretty good idea. Okay. Any more questions? How many questions should one practice purposefully to get Q48, please? Shashadri, very difficult for me to answer. Trust me, no set number of questions are required. It's more about identifying where your gaps lie. Understand whether your concept gaps, application gaps, work on those gaps purposefully, do them properly. Because otherwise you cannot like improve your score. You have to understand where you're lacking. Just by doing more questions, if you can succeed, then obviously everyone would have succeeded. So identify where your gaps are and then work accordingly. Okay. Any other questions, guys? And one more quick announcement. In the meantime, you guys ask any other questions. We are actually running a Memorial Day sale where we are actually offering our online prep course for only $219, which is like 57% off on the course fee. So you can actually check out our course in case you are looking at this online prep model. You can look at that as well. We have live classroom model also, which is the crash course, which we offer for $349, slightly different package. You get live interactions as well for tutors. So you have all those options available on the website. You can check it out in case you want to look at it. Okay, let me take a few more questions. Sigismund says, is it okay to skip the fourth RC passage? See, if it is in the last quarter, you can choose to do it. And if RC is not your strength, you can choose to do it. Pujita says, usually there is a huge gap between mock scores and official scores. Is it because mocks are easier, because we have really tense during the exam? A lot of factors are there, Pujita, to be very honest. Anxiety is one. You knowing some questions beforehand from the mocks is another. The difficulty level of the mock is another issue. The consistency of the mocks is also another issue. Like some people are not very consistent about it. So Chirag is saying, also I'm preparing since a year now. I give a mock every alternate day and review it the next day, spending 3-4 hours. Is this the right approach? So Chirag, if you are there in the webinar, I told you even taking a mock every 3-4 days is not the right thing to do. If you're taking mocks and you're thinking that taking mocks will help you improve your score, you're working in the wrong direction. You're only repeating the mistakes. The improvement does not happen as much. Rather, spend your time and energy on understanding why are you faltering with what you are faltering. Okay, that is much more important. You can connect with me. I would like to know more about you. Obviously, I cannot just give you point blank feedback just based on this data point. So if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me and I'll help you understand how you can work on this. Perfect time required for GMAT prep, considering 5 hours a day. Prince, again, depends on what your current skill level is, but ideally if you're doing 5 hours a day, about 2 to 3 months should be sufficient depending on where you are. Okay. If I aim for 700 in actual exam, how much you should aim for in my mocks? I generally say 720 to 730. Rashmi Rekha, I think mocks don't give anxiety, but actual game text does. Yes, definitely, that's one factor, as I said. Okay, guys, so one last question I can take, then we'll end this webinar. Okay. I don't see any other question. So great, guys. It was great interacting with you. I really liked the discussion that we had today. So do check out the recording in case you have not been able to watch the complete video. And you can always reach out to me if you need help with your GMAT prep. I would definitely be very, very happy to help you out. And we have helped many, many students get to their target scores. Even students who have scored as low as 400 have been able to achieve 700 plus, 760, 770s working with us. So we can definitely help you get there. How many questions we need to solve correctly to get Q48 to 50? I don't want to answer with accuracy because it's an adaptive algorithm, as I said. But if you're looking at a 50 kind of a number, you can afford a maximum of 6 mistakes. That's also very rare. Around 4 to 5 mistakes is what you're looking at with a Q50. Okay. All the best, guys. Thank you so much. I'm happy to know that you like the webinar. If you like the webinar, do give it a thumbs up so that other people are also able to find it. All the best, guys. Thank you so much.